The contents of the grocery bag began to spill as Olivia Newman's designer heel caught on a crack in the sidewalk, sending oranges rolling down the pavement like escaping prisoners. In that split second before disaster, a pair of strong hands appeared, catching the bag before it could completely empty. "Whoa there. Got it," said the man, his reflexes surprisingly quick for someone who was also balancing a 7-year-old on his hip. Olivia looked up to see a pair of kind green eyes that crinkled at the corners when he smiled. The man was tall, probably in his mid-30s, with dark brown hair that curled slightly at the ends. He wasn't dressed expensively worn jeans. A faded flannel shirt rolled up at the sleeves revealing tanned forearms, but there was something immediately appealing about him. "Thank you," she said, feeling oddly flustered as she tucked a strand of her auburn hair behind her ear. "That would have been a complete disaster." "No problem. Been there," he chuckled, setting the little girl down. "Emma, can you grab those oranges before they escape to the next county?" The child giggled and dutifully began collecting the fruit, her pigtails bouncing as she darted around. "I'm Kade, by the way, Kade Collins." He shifted the bag in his arms and offered his free hand. "Olivia Newman," she replied, taking his hand and noticing how rough his palm felt against hers. Working hands, her grandfather would have called them. "Dad, look, I got them all." Emma returned, cradling oranges in her small arms. "Great job, Pumpkin." Kade smiled at his daughter with such obvious affection that Olivia felt a strange flutter in her chest. "We should let Miss Newman get on with her day." "It's just Olivia," she said quickly. "And thank you again. Can I?" She gestured to take back her groceries. "Of course." He handed over the bag carefully. "Emma and I were just heading to the park. It's our Friday tradition." Emma nodded enthusiastically. "Daddy always takes me after school on Fridays, even when he's super tired from work." Olivia smiled at the little girl. "That sounds wonderful." For a moment, the three of them stood there on the sidewalk, an unexpected connection hanging in the air. Olivia Newman, who ran board meetings with ruthless efficiency, suddenly found herself reluctant to end this chance encounter. "Well," she said finally, "have fun at the park." "You too, I mean. Have a good day," Kade replied, looking slightly embarrassed at his awkward response. As they parted ways, Olivia found herself glancing back once to see Kade swinging his daughter's hand as they walked. She didn't notice the headline on a discarded newspaper near her feet announcing "Tech Billionaire Newman Continues Expansion," with her own photograph below the headline. Kade Collins wasn't thinking about the beautiful woman they'd just met as he pushed Emma on the swing. His mind was on the stack of bills waiting at home and the hours he'd need to put in at his contracting job tomorrow to make ends meet. Since Emma's mother had left 3 years ago, it had been just the two of them, and while he wouldn't trade being Emma's dad for anything, the financial strain was constant. "Higher, Daddy, higher," Emma squealed, her legs pumping as she soared through the air. "Any higher and you'll reach the clouds," he laughed, giving her another push. Later that evening, after Emma was tucked into bed with her favorite stuffed rabbit, Kade sat at the kitchen table sorting through bills. The apartment was small but clean, with mismatched furniture and walls decorated with Emma's artwork. He'd managed to keep them afloat, but just barely. The construction company he worked for had been laying people off, and he was worried his name might be next on the list. His phone rang, and he picked it up without checking the caller ID, assuming it was his boss about tomorrow's job. "Hello, is this Kade Collins?" asked a woman's voice he didn't recognize. "Yes, who's this?" "This is Olivia Newman. We met earlier today when you saved my groceries." Kade sat up straight, surprised. "Oh, hi, how did you get my number?" There was a slight pause. "You dropped your business card when you were helping me. I hope you don't mind that I called." Kade ran a hand through his hair, trying to remember the last time a woman had called him out of the blue. "No, not at all. Just surprised. I wanted to thank you properly. I was wondering if you might be free for coffee sometime." His first instinct was to decline. Between work and Emma, he barely had time to breathe, let alone date. but something in her voice made him hesitate. "I usually have Emma with me most of the time," he said honestly. "That's perfectly fine," Olivia replied without hesitation. "She seems lovely. Perhaps the three of us could go for ice cream instead." Kade found himself smiling. "She'd love that. So would I, actually." They arranged to meet that Sunday afternoon, and after hanging up, Kade wondered what he was getting himself into. He didn't know anything about this woman, except that she bought organic groceries and wore shoes that probably cost more than his monthly rent. What he didn't know was that Olivia Newman sat in her penthouse apartment, equally surprised at herself for making that call. At 34, she had built Newman Technologies from a small startup into a global powerhouse. Her face occasionally graced the cover of business magazines, and her net worth had long since passed the $1 billion mark. Yet here she was, feeling like a teenager with a crush over a chance meeting with a single dad. Sunday arrived with perfect early autumn weather. Kade and Emma waited outside the ice cream shop, Emma bouncing with excitement. "Is she your girlfriend, Daddy?" Emma asked for the third time. "No, Pumpkin. She's just someone we met who was nice," Kade explained patiently. "Remember how we talked about being on your best behavior?" Emma nodded solemnly, then immediately brightened. "There she is." Olivia was walking toward them, dressed casually in jeans and a light sweater that probably cost more than Kade's entire wardrobe. But there was nothing pretentious about her smile when she spotted them. "Hi," she said, almost shyly. "I'm glad you both could come." "Daddy said we could get 2 scoops if I'm extra good," Emma announced, making both adults laugh. The afternoon passed with surprising ease. Olivia seemed genuinely interested in Emma's detailed explanation of her first-grade class and the intricate social dynamics of the playground. Kade found himself relaxing, enjoying the way Olivia's eyes lit up when she laughed. "So what do you do?" he finally asked as Emma concentrated on preventing her ice cream from dripping. "I work in technology," Olivia said vaguely. "Software development," Kade nodded. "Sounds interesting. I'm pretty basic when it comes to tech, can barely keep up with Emma's iPad games." "What about you?" "Your card said Collins Construction." "I'm a contractor, mostly residential renovations," he explained. "I work for a company now, but I used to have my own small business before." He glanced at Emma. "Before things changed." Olivia seemed to understand what he wasn't saying. "I'd love to see some of your work sometime." They spent 2 hours together, walking through the nearby park after ice cream, with Emma running ahead to examine bugs and leaves. When it was time to part ways, there was an awkward moment where neither seemed to know quite what to say. "This was nice," Olivia finally offered. "It was," Kade agreed. "Maybe we could do it again." The smile that bloomed on her face told him he'd said the right thing. Over the next few weeks, they fell into a rhythm. Coffee when Emma was at school. Dinners at casual restaurants where Emma wouldn't get bored. Trips to museums and parks on weekends. Kade found himself looking forward to Olivia's texts and calls, even as he wondered what she saw in him. Olivia was thoughtful with Emma, bringing her small gifts like interesting rocks or books about insects after Emma had mentioned her fascination with creepy crawlies. She never pushed for details about Emma's mother, sensing Kade's discomfort with the topic. For her part, Olivia was enjoying the refreshing simplicity of being with Kade. He treated her like a normal person, not a business icon or a potential investor. He didn't seem impressed by her cashmere sweaters or her subtle hints about traveling abroad. In fact, he seemed completely oblivious to the fact that her work in technology was somewhat understated. One evening, after they'd put Emma to bed following a dinner at Kade's apartment, they sat on his worn couch, a glass of inexpensive wine in hand. "You know, you never really talk much about your job," Kade said casually. "Bad day at work," Olivia hesitated. "Not exactly, it's complicated." "Try me," he said with a smile. "I'm smarter than I look." She took a deep breath. "I'm actually the CEO of Newman Technologies." Kade's brow furrowed. "The software company?" "Yes," He nodded slowly. That's impressive. You must be pretty good at what you do. She studied his face, waiting for the change that usually came when men learned about her success, the immediate calculation of her worth, the shift in how they saw her. But it didn't come. That's it, she asked, unable to hide her surprise. Just that's impressive? Kade looked confused. Should I have another reaction? I mean, it explains the nice clothes and why you're always checking your phone, but you're still just Olivia to me. She leaned forward and kissed him then, overcome with emotion. Kade responded immediately, his hand gently cradling her face as if she were something precious. When they broke apart, both were slightly breathless. What was that for? He asked. For seeing me, she replied simply. As their relationship deepened, Olivia began to understand the financial strain Kade was under. He never complained, but she noticed the careful way he budgeted, the extra shifts he took when Emma was with a friend's family, the creative meals he made from whatever was in the refrigerator. She wanted to help but knew he was proud. The one time she'd offered to pay for a dinner that was clearly stretching his budget, the flash of hurt in his eyes had been unmistakable. Instead, she found subtle ways to contribute. She accidentally bought too many groceries and asked if he could use the extras. She organized outings where she could reasonably insist on treating them both. She discovered that Emma needed a math tutor and offered herself, spending evenings at their kitchen table going over fractions. 3 months into their relationship, disaster struck. Kade came home to find an eviction notice on his door. His landlord was selling the building, and all tenants had 60 days to vacate. The same week, his boss called to tell him they were downsizing and his position was being eliminated. Olivia found him sitting at his kitchen table that night, long after Emma was asleep, staring at bills and job listings. "Hey," she said softly, sitting beside him. "Talk to me." He looked up, his eyes hollow with worry. "I don't know what I'm going to do, Liv. Housing prices are insane right now. I can't find anything in Emma's school district that I can afford, and without a steady job." He ran a hand over his face. "I've been trying to get my own business going again on the side, but without startup capital." Olivia placed her hand over his. "Let me help." He shook his head immediately. "I can't take your money, Olivia. That's not why I'm with you." "I know that," she said firmly, "but I have resources and you need help. Would you refuse if it was a bank offering you a business loan? That's different, is it? What if I told you I sometimes invest in small businesses? It could be a proper business arrangement. I provide capital, you provide the expertise and labor, we draw up real contracts." Kade looked skeptical. "You invest in construction companies. I invest in people I believe in," she replied. "And I believe in you, Kade Collins." The next day, she brought over paperwork for a business loan with reasonable terms. Kade read through it carefully, his contractor's eye picking up on the details. "This is generous," he said finally. "It's fair," she corrected. "I've seen your work. You're talented, and there's a market for quality renovation in this area. I'm making a sound business decision." After much discussion, he agreed to accept the loan to restart Collins' construction. The housing situation, however, remained a problem. "There's another option," Olivia said tentatively one evening while they were discussing rental listings. "I have plenty of space in my place." Kade's head snapped up. "Are you asking us to move in with you?" "I'm suggesting it might be a practical solution while you get your business established," she said carefully. "No pressure, just an option." "I haven't even seen your place," he pointed out. "You always come to us." Olivia bit her lip. "There's a reason for that." The following weekend, she took Kade and Emma to her penthouse apartment. As the private elevator ascended to the top floor, she watched Kade's face anxiously. The doors opened directly into her foyer, revealing a sprawling space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. The decor was minimal and elegant, with obvious touches of wealth in the original artwork and designer furniture. Emma immediately ran to the windows. "Daddy, look how high we are." Kade stood frozen, taking it all in. "This is where you live?" "Yes," Olivia said quietly. I should have been more forthcoming about everything. He turned to her, his expression unreadable. Just how successful is Newman Technologies? She took a deep breath. Well, the financial press usually refers to me as a billionaire. Kade let out a low whistle. A billionaire. And you've been dating a guy who checks his couch cushions for spare change to buy milk. I've been dating a man who loves his daughter more than anything, who works harder than anyone I know, who makes me laugh, and who sees me as a person, not a bank account, she corrected firmly. He was quiet for a long moment, watching Emma press her nose against the glass. I need some time to process this. I understand, she said, trying to hide her disappointment. For what it's worth, I never meant to mislead you. It was nice being with someone who didn't know. The drive back to Kade's apartment was quiet, with only Emma's excited chatter about Olivia's castle in the sky filling the silence. After dropping them off, Olivia returned home alone, wondering if she'd just lost something precious by finally revealing the whole truth. 3 days passed with minimal communication. Olivia threw herself into work, trying not to check her phone every 5 minutes. When Kade finally called and asked if they could talk, she agreed immediately. They met at a small park near his apartment while Emma was at school. I've been doing a lot of thinking, Kade said as they sat on a bench. And some research. You're not just successful, Olivia, you're one of the most powerful women in tech. Your face was on the cover of Business Week last month. It was a slow news cycle, she tried to joke, but it fell flat. Why me? He asked bluntly. You could have anyone. That's exactly why, she replied. Most people want Olivia Newman, CEO and billionaire. You wanted just Olivia, the woman who drops her groceries and loves pistachio ice cream and can't cook to save her life. But that's only part of who you are, he pointed out. The penthouse and the company and all of it, that's you too, she nodded. Yes, it is, and I should have been honest sooner, but I was afraid. Of what? That you'd look at me differently. That you'd feel inadequate, or think I was slumming it, or that you wouldn't want to deal with the complications my life brings. She looked down at her hands. Most men are either intimidated by my success or only interested in what it can do for them. Kade was quiet for a moment. I won't pretend it doesn't intimidate me, the thought of Emma and me living in that penthouse. It's terrifying. What would I contribute? How would I ever feel like you're equal? You'd contribute exactly what you always have: stability, warmth, laughter. The things money can't buy, Olivia said softly. As for being equals, we are. Different strengths, different resources, but equals in what matters. He ran a hand through his hair. I can't move into your place, Olivia, not yet. It would feel too much like charity. She nodded, trying to hide her disappointment. I understand, but, he continued, I will take that business loan. And maybe we can look for a place that's a middle ground, not your penthouse, but somewhere we could all be comfortable, that I could contribute to meaningfully once the business is up and running. Hope bloomed in her chest. Does that mean? It means I love you, he said simply. Billionaire or not, and I think we can figure out the rest as we go. The following months brought significant changes. Collins' construction was reborn, with Kade focusing on high-end renovations. His craftsmanship and attention to detail quickly earned him a reputation among affluent homeowners, and Olivia's business connections didn't hurt. They found a comfortable townhouse in a good school district, not as lavish as Olivia's penthouse, but far more spacious than Kade's apartment. They agreed to split expenses proportionally to their incomes, an arrangement that allowed Kade to contribute meaningfully while acknowledging the reality of their financial disparity. Emma thrived in her new school and adored having Olivia around more often. She didn't fully grasp the concept of Olivia's wealth, but she did understand that Olivia made her dad happier than she'd seen him in years. Challenges remained. The first time they attended a gala where Olivia was being honored, Kade felt out of place among tech moguls and venture capitalists. But he found his footing, charming people with his straightforward manner and genuine interest in their conversations. To his surprise, Several of Olivia's colleagues became clients of his construction business. Olivia, meanwhile, discovered the joys of a less structured life. She learned to leave work at the office sometimes, to enjoy weekends at the park without checking emails, to help with homework and bedtime stories. Her board of directors noticed the change. She was more balanced, more decisive, less driven by the need to prove herself constantly. On their one-year anniversary, Kade took Olivia back to the ice cream shop where they'd had their first date. Emma was with them, proudly wearing a dress she had selected herself for the special occasion. After ice cream, they walked to the spot in the park where Kade had first realized he was falling for Olivia. He seemed nervous, checking his pocket repeatedly. "Are you okay, Daddy?" Emma asked, noticing his fidgeting. "Perfect, pumpkin," he replied with a smile. "Hey, remember what we practiced?" Emma nodded solemnly and reached into her small purse, extracting a tiny box. She handed it to Kade, who took a deep breath and turned to Olivia. "I had this whole speech planned," he said, "but I think it's pretty simple, really. You came into our lives unexpectedly, and you've made everything better. Not because of your money or your success, but because of your heart." He knelt down, opening the box to reveal a ring elegant but not ostentatious. "Olivia Newman, would you do me the honor of becoming my wife and Emma's stepmom?" Tears filled Olivia's eyes. "Yes," she whispered. 1,000 times yes." Emma squealed and threw her arms around both of them. "Does this mean I can call you Mom now?" she asked Olivia. Olivia looked to Kade, who nodded, his own eyes suspiciously bright. "I would love that, Emma," she said, pulling the little girl close. Later that night, after Emma was asleep in her room, Olivia and Kade sat on the patio of their townhouse, looking at the stars. "I have a confession," Olivia said, her head on Kade's shoulder. "I knew who you were before you caught my groceries that day." He turned to look at her in surprise. "What?" she nodded. "My foundation was funding a renovation at Emma's school. I saw you dropping her off one morning. You were wearing your work clothes, and you kissed her forehead before she went inside. You looked so genuine. I found myself wondering what it would be like to be loved like that. So you engineered our meeting." He asked, not sure whether to be amused or disturbed. "Not exactly," she laughed. "I did deliberately shop at that grocery store hoping to see you again, but dropping the bag was a genuine accident. I'm not that coordinated." Kade shook his head, smiling. "I thought I was the one who got lucky that day." "We both did," Olivia said, looking at her ring. "Sometimes the most valuable things in life are the ones you catch when you're not looking for them." 5 years later, the Collins family had expanded. Emma, now 12, was a doting big sister to 3-year-old twins James and Lily. Kade's business had grown into one of the most sought-after renovation companies in the region, employing 15 people and with a wait list of clients. Olivia still ran Newman Technologies, though she had restructured the company to allow for more family time. They split their time between the city townhouse and a countryside home Kade had renovated himself as a surprise for their 3rd anniversary. On Sunday mornings, they still went for ice cream as a family, a tradition that had started with that first date. As they sat at their usual table, Emma entertaining the twins while Olivia and Kade watched adoringly, a young woman at a nearby table dropped her purse, spilling its contents across the floor. Kade immediately jumped up to help her collect her things, a reflex that had become second nature. When he returned to their table, Olivia was smiling at him with such love that he had to ask, "What?" "Just thinking about how different our lives would be if you hadn't caught my groceries that day," she said, reaching for his hand. He squeezed her fingers gently. "Best catch I ever made." "I don't know," she teased, nodding toward their children. "Those 3 might give that moment some competition." Kade looked around at his family, the brilliant, kind-hearted woman who had chosen to share her life with him, the strong, compassionate young lady Emma was becoming, and the twins with their boundless energy and curiosity, and felt a contentment so deep it almost hurt. "You're right," he agreed. "Some things are worth more than all the billions in the world." And in that moment, surrounded by the family they had built together, both Kade and Olivia knew that the greatest fortune of all was the love they had found in each other.